Good evening, everyone. It is about 8 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, and we're preparing for this coming week with A Child's History of the World, Chapter 57. And we're going to be looking at John, whom nobody loved. That's a play on words with the disciple, John, whom Jesus loved. Okay, so John, whom nobody loved. Richard the Lionheart, whom everybody loved, had a brother named John, who nobody loved. This brother, John, became king, but he turned out to be a very wicked king. He is another one of the villains in history whom we do not like, but like to hear about and like to clap when he gets what he deserves. John was afraid that his nephew, named Arthur, might be made king in his place, so he had him murdered. Some say he hired others to do the killing. Some say he murdered him with his own hands. This was a very bad beginning for his reign, but things got worse and worse as time went on. John got into a quarrel with the Pope in Rome. Remember, a quarrel is a disagreement. The Pope at the time said what should be done and what should not be done in churches everywhere. The Pope ordered John to make a certain man bishop in England, and John said he wouldn't do it. He wanted another man, a friend of his, to be bishop. The Pope then said he would close up all the churches in England if John didn't do as he was told. John said he didn't care. Let the Pope go ahead and close up all the churches if he wanted to. So the Pope ordered all churches in England to be closed until John should give in. Nowadays, this might not have made much difference, but then, as I have told you, the church was the one most important thing in everyone's life. In fact, nothing else mattered at the time. The closing of the churches meant that no services could be held in any church. It meant that children could not be baptized, and so if they died, it was believed they could not go to heaven. It meant that couples could not be married. It meant that the dead could not be given a Christian burial. The people of England were shocked. It was as if heaven had put a curse on them. Pardon me. They were afraid that terrible things would happen to them. Of course, the people blamed John, for he was the cause of the churches being closed. They were so angry at him that he became scared, afraid what his people might do to him. When at last the Pope threatened to make another man king of England in John's place, yes, the Pope had that much power, that John, in fear and trembling, gave in and agreed to do everything that at first he said he would not do, and more besides. But John was pig-headed. He was always doing the wrong thing and sticking to it. John had an idea that the world was made for the king and that people were put on the earth simply so the king might have servants to work for him, to earn money for him, to do what he wished them to do. Many of the kings of olden days felt the same way, though they did not go as far as John did. Now take that over to your dad so that he can help you with the transitions and to read over your thing. A simple yes, Mom, will do. John would order people who were rich to give him whatever money he wanted. If they refused to give him all he asked, he would put them in prison, have their hands squeezed in iron presses until the bones cracked and the blood ran, or he would even have them put to death. John got worse and worse until at last his barons could not stand his actions any longer. So they made him prisoner and took him to a little island in the Thames River called Runnymede. Here they forced John to agree to certain things that he had written down in Latin. That is, in the year 1215. And 1215 was a bad date for John, but a good date for the English people. This last of things which the baron made John agree to was called by the Latin name for a great agreement or charter, which is Magna Carta. It is a charter, an agreement. John did not agree to the Magna Carta willingly, however. He was as angry and furious as a spoiled child who kicks and screams when forced to do something he doesn't want to do. So in other words, he threw a hissy fit. He had to agree, nevertheless. John was unable to write his name, and thus he could not sign the agreement as people sign contracts nowadays. But he wore a seal ring that was used by people who could not sign their names. And this seal he pressed into a piece of hot wax, which was dropped on the agreement where one would have signed. John agreed in the Magna Carta to give barons some of the rights that we think every human being should have anyway, without agreement. For instance, a person certainly has the right to keep the money he earns, and he has the right not to have it taken away from him unlawfully. A person also has the right not to be put in prison or be punished by the king or anyone else unless he has done something wrong, and unless he has had a fair trial. These are two of the rights that John agreed to in the Magna Carta. There were quite a number of others. John didn't keep his agreement, however. He broke it the very first time he had a good chance, as a person usually does when he's forced to agree to do something against his will. John died pretty soon, and so, as far as he was concerned, the Magna Carta didn't matter much. However, kings who came after him were made to agree to the same things. So after 1215, the king in England was supposed to be the servant of the people, and not the people servants of the king, as they had been before that time. Stay tuned. We're going to have the next chapter up here pretty soon, too. Ta-ta for now.